about the opening. Okay, so because I think this is relevant to most of you, let me turn on the engine first. So that's about when we play as black, and we have this Queen's Gambit and the G3. So in this game we play C5. So actually this was evaluated not as the best move. The best move turned out to be bishop e7. I just want to quickly walk through what is happening here. And what I recommend in this opening is let's castle first. For example, bishop to e7, white could play bishop to g2 because of g3, white is very likely to move bishop g2. And we castle, and in this position, you can play c5, you can also play c6, but don't play the c pawn to c5 before you castle, because as we show in this game, we play c5. Now, the problem is our king is still in the center, and remember when we talked about if your opponent has a king at the center, try to open the center because you can attack the king, and vice versa. If you have a king at the center, don't open the center so soon, especially if you're not capable to control that. We only have a knight developed. Jay?
If I was white in this position, I would move queen to a4.
You mean queen to a4 to check the king?
Yeah, because it's very exposed. And I kind of no, bishop could block.
Yeah, I think bishop can block, and also black can get some tempo. So yeah, bishop. I think queen a4 is a little too early because it will be like attacked by the bishop. So actually, in this game, white played very well. So white just castle, make the king safe, and we played the bishop to d6. And you see, after white take our pawn, we need to like play an extra move of the bishop to c5. And after like the exchange of the center pawn, our king is quite exposed, and also the d5 pawn is so weak, it's isolated. And after bishop to g5, how can we deal with this pin? If we castle, white take our knight, and yeah, so we'll have a problem with this d5 pawn. Someone left a message. 2,300. Yeah, that's a strong opponent. So we'll have problem at d5. I mean, of course, you can argue that you can take the b2 pawn, but I think white can actually move the knight first to attack d5. And if you push the pawn, you will have a problem at this c5 bishop. And more importantly, the d4 pawn is very weak. It's definitely a target. So yeah, we play bishop to b6 and knight c3. Yeah, so white just adding pieces, attacking this d5 pawn. We are slow in castling, and the d5 pawn is really a problem. We just lost the pawn. Even though we won the b2 pawn, there's a queen e4 check, and knight e7 will lose this pawn. So yeah, our like defense is broken. So that's a problem. I don't really recommend pushing the pawn to c5 if we haven't made our king safe. Okay, so what should we do instead? As I said, bishop e7, I can play a couple of moves. So I really like to set up structure with c6. Regardless what or how would white develop pieces, I would set up a very solid structure. The question for this structure is how should we develop our light square bishop, because it's kind of blocked like within this pawn structure. Actually, we do have a bunch of ways. So I mean, first of all, if white take our pawn, we can just take it down with the e pawn, and the bishop is free. If white doesn't take our pawn, we can, for example, we can take that. It depends. For example, if a knight d2, you can take that, knight take, then b5, kick the knight. And if knight go back, you play bishop d7 and later c5. So you can have a bishop like at this diagonal. Other than that, you can play, for example, white play b3, protect c4. If you take that, white have this b pawn like close to the center. So if we don't want to let this happen, you can play b6 and later bishop to like b7. So for example, bishop b2, bishop b7, knight d2, you can play knight d7, and later you can play c5. If white take your pawn, you can take that with the e pawn. Rook c1, c5. And you will have this very good center pawns. They're connected and they are well supported. And your bishop protecting this one, defending the knight, and this bishop like guarding this d5, the center pawn. You can move queen to b6 and d4. So you can do a bunch of things with this pawn structure. So I thought this is what I would set up in this opening. Yes. So that's about this opening. Any question? Otherwise, let's move on. The next one is about endgame. We haven't talked about endgame for a long time, but we do have a game. This is something very interesting to share, I think. So now, so we have 4 pawns, and white have 4 pawns, and now it's white to move. The white king doesn't have a clear path to work inside because we have a king defending e5. We can move our king like around these 3 squares to defend e5. So from this perspective, white play h5. And I think the intention is very clear. White tries to create some space to move the king like further in. But actually, h5 turned out to be a bad move. So my question leaves to you is, what should we do? Should we take the pawn or should we keep it as it is? What is the best move for black? Can anyone set up a plan? Jaden, do you want to share?
G takes H5 maybe.
G takes it. Let's try to, yeah. Let's try to visualize the moves in our head. If you take the pawn and white potentially take that, what you gonna do?
Maybe king F5.
King F5. Then what about king H6?
I don't know. Maybe you could like hover around. Maybe something like king to F4.
King F4. And if white take your pawn, take your H7.
We take their G5.
Yeah, take G5. Then the question is, let's remove all the pawns at this the 4 pawn, and we have a king, white king at H4, and black king at G5. And it's white to move. Now who's going to win?
I don't know.
Yeah, this is a question about which king is faster. And
Like
let's move the pieces to that. For example, like I think king G4. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, let's calculate that in our head, everyone. So, which side will win? Which side is more likely to win? Now it's white move. And why is that? Jin, your hand is up. What do you think?
must play king to H8, otherwise he's probably gonna lose.
No, it's going to be black's gonna win. But
Mhm.
also in the first position, I
Mhm.
would just keep the pawn the same, because if they take us, we take back. The F5 and H5 squares are still under our control because the pawns will just occupying it.
Okay. We will talk about that later. That if we keep the point as it is, but let's continue. That's a very good point. Let's continue this one. So I think someone said black's going to win. Do the rest of you agree? It's about calculating the king moves in our head. So I think the pawn, the white king is strive for is the c6 pawn. And what is the king we are going to take? c3. Let's calculate in our head which king is faster, who is going to win. And if you agree that black's going to win, please give me a thumb up if you're ready. If you think white is going to win, please give me a thumb down. Thumb up, thumb up. A lot of thumb ups. Cool. Thumb ups. Yeah, let's try that. I have seen the votes. Thank you, everyone. So I think white, if white want to win, take the pawn, I think king g7 should be the first move, right? Because that is a square we can get close to the pawn. And what should the black move? That's actually an interesting question. That's actually an interesting question because we have two paths. One is like maybe e3, f4, e4, d3, c3, or f5, e4, d3, and c3. Which one would you choose? Jaden, your hand is up.
Choose the f5 path.
Because somehow it can like actually control these two squares.
Yeah, for the time
Maybe,
being.
yeah, maybe that's not necessary, but it's good that we can limit the choice of the white king. And also, it takes the same moves for us to reach c3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's move king f5, king f7, king king e4, king e6. Please interrupt me if you disagree with some of the moves. And what should we do next? King e3. Okay, so I think black king is one step faster than the white king. So actually, black can win with his pass pawn. Jin?
That's all right.
Jin, you're muted and your hand is up.
When the black king goes to d3 and the white king goes to d6, when black takes c3, instead of taking the c6 pawn, I'd actually do king to c5.
Okay. But I think in the end you have to take the c6 pawn. Otherwise, yeah, this pawn is not the passed pawn. Yeah. So yeah. So I think black is winning. But one more thing. So I think first of all we can draw a conclusion here that if white take our pawn, we can take g5, and our king is faster. But what if white play king to h4? If white doesn't want to lose a g5 pawn, what can we do? This is some like extension in this position. Does anyone has some idea? How can we eventually take this pawn? Or should we go to the right side immediately? Which one is the best choice? Black to move. So yeah, any one of you can give me an answer. You can type it, you can like speak it out, or what could be your choice to move the king or pawn? And we can connect the ideas and figure out what is the best one. This is a very interesting king pawn endgame. So we have king g6, we have king e4, we have king g6, to king g6. Okay. Another king g6, king e4. Okay, we have king g6, king e4. It looks like king g6 has like 3 votes. King e4 like 2 votes. We have 5 people. Okay, I think we have collected all the answers. Okay, so this is the question is, should we like move the king, yeah, in front of g5 or maybe try to get the c3? Let's try that out. So, I mean, ideally we should calculate that in our head, right? We should calculate to the end. So this is the essence of pawn's endings. So king e4, what about king h5? Are we still going for the c3 pawn? Look at this h7. White can win the 2 pawns in 2 moves. If we go back, maybe king goes to h4. If we go to here, king h5. Let's try king d3. King h6, take the pawn. Because this pawn is actually quite good in terms of position. The king d2, do, 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 do. Actually, the white is actually quicker than us. The white has this advantage to check our king first. So we cannot guarantee that we can win. White can also like choose to trade up queen, for example. I'm not saying queen g5 trading queen favors white, but white has so many ways to attack us. And if we calculate to this position, I won't like keep like calculating that because white has, as I said, have so many choice to check our king, and this is so complicated to calculate. So actually, play king e4. White king can have this g5 pawn promote. But what about king g6? Now, what about king g4? Can we still win the g5 pawn? I'm not sure. And also, I think we will give up the f5 square, which is so scary. What shall we do? For those who type king g6, what about king g4? What you gonna do? I think some of you, Blake, for example, did you? Oh, you typed king e4. Sorry. Jin said like king g6. Jack, what do you think? I don't get the answer from you. Jack, do you agree with moving the king to g6 or e4? Are you there?
I think I agree with king e4.
Okay, king e4. Then we check that out that king e4 doesn't really work because the white king can take h7. Okay, thank you very much. Then yeah, king g6. Jing and Jaden, you said like king g6. Then what about king g4?
I just
What's
don't
gonna-
know. I don't know what to do after that. I didn't think.
Okay, then we need to think about it. Jaden, your hand is up. What are you gonna do?
King d7, king f7, and then maybe king. I'll try king g7 first.
King g7. What about king f5?
King f7,
King e5.
king e7.
E7. This is slow. It looks like first of all, our opponent has a better king than us because the position is quite high for regarding the white king. Now what about d5? I think we'll lose a c4 pawn.
Maybe king to d7. No, that'll
King
lose.
d7. Take yours. If you take that, king f6, and you will lose the h7 pawn.
Yeah.
So that doesn't look good. That doesn't look good. So okay, back to this position. If we remember what we talked about, king h6, king g5. If we have this position, we can win, right? Black can win. So my point is, can we find out a way? Let's move to this. Yeah, can we find out a way to take the g5 pawn? If we can take the g5 pawn, white could probably take the h7, but we can win. How can we take the g5 pawn? That's the question. I think neither like king e4 nor like g6 can help us take the pawn. Jaden.
King f4.
King f4. Let's try that. And if white want to protect pawn, white have to move the king to h5. What can we do next?
Maybe king to g3.
Bring to g3. That's a good move. We control these two squares. And king go down. We have king g4. Then this is a position we talked about earlier, right? You take my pawn, I take yours. And this is a position we can win. Then what about g6? We take that. And which one? Which king is faster?
I go king f4.
Let's try that.
Okay.
I think the black king is still like faster. So this is a solution that black can win. First of all, take the h5 pawn and try to trade our h7 with g5. Because if you look at this position, so if we remove these two pawns off the board, if we only look at these four pawns, it's definitely clear that the black king has a better position than the white king because the white king is at this rook file, and black king is definitely closer to the queen side. So as long as we can trade the pawns at the king side, the black king, yeah, is faster. Okay, so this is about the end game, h5, and we should definitely take that. We have another question. If we don't take the pawn, can we still win the game? Then what should we do? King d5? Jin, what do you think?
I just think someone which can protect e5.
Yeah, can you think about a specific move?
I think king d5.
King d5. Yeah, we want to move the king to e4. If white takes that, I think we should take that. But king f4.
Oh.
If you move our king down, the king will go to e4. And I don't think we have a chance to move to e4. Because white can move the king around this e4 to just to keep that, control that. The one thing we can try, I'm not sure it's a good move, probably not, c5. Is that something we can risk trying? Take that. Which one can win? Which side can win? The question to you, to all of you. White move. Which side will win? Yeah, that's a good game from you, Jaden. Thank you for sharing that. You're playing someone who has a 1700 rating. Well, that's quite high. And you get a draw, right? In the end. Cool. And actually, we can win this game. That's even exciting, even more exciting. Yes, which side will win this game? Which side can win? White to move. Jaden?
I think probably just depend because white might go for king e5 and then king f6, and you don't think you've got enough time. So I think white will win.
Mm-hmm. King e5? Can white win with king e5?
And then you have to go king b. You have to like reverse, and then they could like play king f6, and then
Yeah.
they could like probably
Okay.
like
Which,
faster.
which, yeah, which side is faster?
Probably white, probably black. But then
Okay.
it has problems because I don't like playing in this position as white or black because it's like very hard to win, and
Uh-huh.
if you're not careful, they can promote and become a draw.
Yeah. Let's try to review this position. Actually, we have talked about like we have like a bishop pawn reaching like a black bishop pawn reaching like c2 and the king goes to that. Can white win if both sides play the best move? Can white win or can black get a draw? Does anyone has an answer? I know it's difficult, but we need a definite answer here. Can white win or can like black try to get a draw here? Jin.
I think they could get a draw like the 50 move rule because if white keeps checking the black king, actually no, if white checks the king goes to c1, then that means the white king can go further.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question to think about where should we place the black king. Let's do like this. Any volunteer to play as black, and I will play as white. And let's try to see, does anyone want to try get Blake? Is your hand like raising? Okay. Uh, so you play as black, I play as white, okay? I play queen to h8.
Queen h8.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, b8.
King c3.
King c3. And check it.
King d2.
In d2, then check it again.
King e1.
E1. Check it again.
King d1.
Check it again.
King c1.
King d3.
King b2.
Then I check it again.
King A1,
King A4,
King B2,
King B4,
King A1,
King C3,
King B1,
King B3,
King C1,
King E4,
King D2,
King B2,
and King D1,
King B4,
King E2,
King C3,
King D1,
check it again,
King C1,
King C4,
King B2.
check it again,
King A1,
King A1, check it again,
King B1.
and then my king is so close, King B3.
No.
Yeah, we have done so well, but there's one move I think we can do better, because you let my king move so close to your king. You know what? Actually, while my king was at like e6, and I want to check your king, we move the king to c1. But what's the best move?
A1.
Yeah, we realized that later, but that's too late. Actually, we should move the king to a1, and I explained that to everyone. Is if you have a bishop pawn like this, black has a chance to get a draw if the white king is so far away from this black king in the pawn. Why is that? And what I was trying to do is I have to push the black king in front of the pawn to block the pawn, and then I can get my king closer and closer to take the pawn. And if black move the king to c1, I move my king like close. But if what is happening? Let's go here. Yes. So I check it. No, d1. So something like that. So if you move king to c1, you will block your pawn, and the white king can get close. But if you move the king to a1, it's a very interesting position that if white take the pawn, that's a stalemate. So white has to check your king again, like queen to a3 or king to c3, and black king can move to b1 to still like help the pawn promote. Check again, king to a1. And in the game we played, we have a funny position, which is something like, I don't remember, like this. And if the white king gets so close to the black king, even though black has the queen, white can mate in one. And if black get the knight, that doesn't help much. You can move the king like away a bit, and white can definitely win. Jane, do you have a question?
Can't you just play queen to b2 always check?
That's your king is on the check.
Yeah,
So
I didn't realize.
yeah, so we have to move the king. But yeah, if you move the knight to here, for example, like king e7, the knight will be captured in the end. And if you move knight to like here, you can still move the king to here. And yeah, it's so easy to, like, for example, fork the knight later on. Yeah, white can definitely win. So yes, so the thing is, if you have this position, if the white king is so far away from the pawn, actually it's a draw. But let's get back to the position once again. King e5, king b5, and we try king f6, right? We want to take this pawn, but we will lose the c3. Can we just make things easier? Can we take the b3 pawn? Can we change our target? If we move king to, for example, d4, can we still win this pawn? If we can win this pawn, we are still winning, right? If you move here, take here. So you have like an extra pawn, which a huge like advantage. King h7. can still have a queen. So actually white can win. Instead of moving the king to the g6, we can actually, this is a very interesting move actually. King e5, this position, the king can go to like either left or right. So if the king moves to here, you can always move to here to take the c4 pawn. But you can move to f6 as well. If the king try to take out c3, you can play king d4 to win the c4. Okay? So yeah, so the thing is, if we want to summarize, yeah, I think we should take the pawn instead of like keep it as it is, because this is the only chance we can move the king to f5. Once white take our pawn, we can move the king to f5. If we don't do that, move king around, the white king can always like control this regress, and our king cannot get a chance to move in. If we play c5, that's a disaster. We'll lose the game. So this is like pawn endings. Actually, quite like complicated, right? Any question about this position? Otherwise, let's move on. We have this one. So this is the middle game. The rest of the two games about the middle games, and it's more about how can we attack our opponent. So now it's white to move. So if you look at the position, like let's count the material first. So we have same number of pieces on both sides, but we have very good like rooks positioned at this semi-open file, and we have a knight, very likely move to d5. Now it's guarded, and in quite some positions like this, white can actually sacrifice the rook with f6. I know it looks like not so sure that we can win the game, but we can try this out in this review. So if we take the knight, pawn takes that, and what you can have a very good like center square for the knight. And also importantly, your rook and the knight can collaborate to attack f6. The knight is attacking e7. And another thing is you open the g file. And once you move the rook, the queen, you can checkmate on this g file. So for example, if rook moved to e6 to protect the pawn, white can win. I think white can mate in 2 moves. Can anyone find out what is the best move for white? If black wants to protect f6 pawn, what should we do? Jing?
Rook to g3.
Rook to g3. What about king to h8?
Queen g4.
Yes.
Queen g4.
Yes, good point. Queen g4 and queen g7. This queen g7 is not stoppable. Rook g8 doesn't work. Yeah, so I think black cannot like save the rook. Black could play probably, I don't know, king to, I don't know, h8. I can't even think about a plan for black to defend this g file attack. So what about king to h8 and later rook to g8? What can we do? What do you think? Any way we can keep attacking? Maybe we don't have to take the rook. I think our knight actually is a better or superior than the e7 rook. And also our rook and knight can work together. If we take the pawn, for example, let's try that. We are attacking the queen. And if the queen moves to b5, the queen is offering a trade. What can we do? Is there any way we can keep attacking black pieces? So for example, what about queen h5? f1 is guarded, which is good. And if queen to b2, threatening queen c1, Probably we can move h3. If you check again, I can move king to h2. The knight is so helpful, guarding f4. And I'm thinking like rook h6 and rook h7, for example. And this e7 rook cannot really move. If move up, I can take f7, queen 7. So we can take the rook whatever we want. But this looks good, so good. And if you don't want to play queen h5, I say even though we trade the queen, they're still better. And rook b6, we can win one of the pawn. Rook c7, we can play c3. I think we can win this one. If you guard this one, we could take b7. And we have 6 pawns. Our pawn has 5 pawns. We have like already like up a pawn, and we can win another one. So we are definitely better. So yeah, so this is a very classic pattern to sacrifice the rook on this semi-open file and later move the knight to center to attack this f6 pawn and also open or expose the black kid. This is sacrifice move. Any question or any comment? Blake, this is a game from you, right? Do you want to share some thoughts when you have this position? So, for example, how much time do you have on the clock? Do you remember?
I had about 7 minutes ish.
Okay, then what about your opponent?
He had 12.
Okay, well, the time pressure is yeah, I can feel the time pressure. And have you considered like rook f6?
I was considering it.
Then what do you think if you take the knight? What do you think the move from black?
Yeah, g takes f6.
Uh-huh.
And then I missed because I calculated rook g3 first.
Okay, rook g3 first. Okay, then what about king? Yeah, but maybe that's is that better? I don't know. King to h8, queen g4.
And king g4.
Yeah, we're going to win, right? What about king to f8?
That's still queen.
Maybe the rook can.
Yeah,
you know?
I can
Yeah.
to king f8 and then the king can run.
Yeah, the king can run to e7. If you move the rook to here, if you move it here, the rook can maybe, yeah, black can sacrifice. Yeah, maybe the king goes to e7. And this is quite solid. Even though the king moves to the center, this is quite solid. Yeah, so yeah, this is about the order of the moves. So yeah, before the rook move to defend the d5, we can move the knight first, guarding e7, and later rook g3, queen g4. Yeah. But I understand it's not easy to find the best move if you have time pressure, like 7 minutes. Do you have a time increment?
Yeah, it was 5 seconds.
Oh, okay, that's quite short. But at least when we once we learn this structure or the pattern, then if we will see something similar next time, we kind of maybe find the best move like quicker. Cool. This is about this one. It's about like opening files and create a weakness at f6. And we have a similar topic. Yeah, it's still a game from you, Blake, but this is from your opponent's perspective. This is also a position for all of you. So the thing is, first of all, the question to you all: which side is better? Now it's black to move. White move the knight to e2 after d4. And my question to you all is, which side is better and how much? And I will ask all of you around the table. You start with Jaden because your hand is up. Which side is better?
I think it's black because he's got a space advantage, but he has less development, and white's knight is like sort of trapped.
Yeah.
Because it can't really go forward unless it wants to be captured.
Okay.
So black has the advantage, and if I would have to say the number, I'd say maybe 1.
Yeah, -1. Yeah, black's better. Yeah, I like your reason. Thank you very much. Clara, what do you think? Which side is better?
I think maybe black is better
Mm-hmm.
because
Any reason?
they have more space and like the pawns they are rushing to the king side, and white's pawns. There's only like one pawn that moved and the other one has been traded.
Mm. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think both of you mentioned that or noticed that black has an advantage in space, especially at this side, right? And that's true. And that actually helps black like attack the white king much easier because the knight cannot guard this 3 square once it moved to e2. And because of this pawn advance, you can maybe attack this pawn with this diagonal. Yeah, cool. Thank you very much. Jack, what do you think? Which side is better? Do you agree that black is better?
Yeah, for probably similar reasons, because you have more space, and then white's pieces are kind of a little bit passive and they can't really move forward. So yeah, black. Probably by minus 1.7.
Okay, thank you very much. And I have another question for you, Jack. So if you play as black, what would be your move?
Well, either bishop b4 to probably attack the queen, maybe try get it trapped, or maybe bishop e6 to try take the a2 pawn.
Attack
Or
the a2?
maybe a weird idea is b4 and then a5.
Okay, we have 3 ideas. Bishop b4, b4, or bishop e6. Is that all?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And the same question for you, Jin. So what do you think? If you play as black, how would you launch plan to attack your opponent?
I do bishop e6.
Bishop to b6. Let's use another color.
E6.
E6. Sorry, bishop e6 and develop bishop and maybe attack the a2. Okay. Anything else, Jin?
I just kind of think that we're supposed to use the e5 and d4 pawn because they're pushing a lot. And they're also kind of making the g3, the dark square bishop, kind of useless.
They are like have same colors as the bishop. Yeah, could like block this bishop. Okay, bishop e6, develop bishop attack a2. Thank you very much.
Have we had bishop b4 yet?
Yeah, we talked about that. Which one do you prefer, bishop e6 or bishop like b4?
I do bishop e6, but if they move their king to b1, then I'd probably just start doing bishop to b4.
Okay, we'll do that later. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Then okay, well let's follow Miss Blake. That is a game from you, right? So what's your comment?
When I was in the game, I thought it was like 1.5 minus 1.5 for black.
Why is that? Why do you think black's better?
They attack on the king side, and he has more space.
Yeah, he has more space. Yeah, when you say they're attacking you mean the king, like do you mean there's a semi-open file?
Yeah.
Black can utilize, okay. And then what you gonna do if you play as your opponent? Like how would you attack white in this case?
If I was black, I would play bishop b6.
And then?
Bishop e6.
Oh, bishop e6. And what about king b1?
Queen b6. Queen b6.
The queen b6.
Yeah. And then b4, a5, a4.
Okay. So actually b4 a5 a4 is in general the way your opponent adopted, right? Trying to push the pawn to create a pawn break. Okay, thank you everyone. So the question is, I mean, bishop e6, the bishop b4, I think by both of moves looks good because we divide the bishop and attack our opponent. But in the end, we need to find out a way to open files. If we cannot open files, it's really hard to break through. So the question is, how can we, or I should ask a more specific question, how can we open files? I mean, of course, we have a semi-open file. We can move the rook to c8 later on to attack c2. But if we only have this semi-open file, it's still like a little bit hard to, for example, like take the c2 pawn. It's well protected, but how can like create a pawn break? Then we can have an open file. And I can show you first, show you everyone what did black play. B6, b4, and black actually quite active, pushing the a pawn or b pawn at the queen side. Take, knight f3, and take the bishop. Yeah, black do open the c file, but actually I think because of these two bishops, black cannot utilize this c file like very soon. And after bishop e6, king b1, actually white can control the c file in one move, or at least move the rook to c file in one move. So this is what we talked about. If you open the file, it's better that we are confident we can control or dominate the files. Otherwise, open the file is probably useless, or even like favors your opponent. A4, white advanced this pawn so great, but it doesn't like open any files yet. And bishop to f2, and I think white did a really good job to attack this weakness. This is a weakness after the pawn exchange, and white tried to attack the center pawn. And b3, a3, and rook c8, rook c1. And from this position and so on, white defended this attack really well, very efficiently, because as I said, even though there's an open file, black cannot dominate that. And black cannot save the d4. So later on, once black lost this pawn, white has a very good control of center and set up some counterattack move. So for example, push the d pawn to d5, something like that. So let's go back to the position. I think black played b4 at this like stage is not the best move. So let's figure out what does the engine say. First of all, the engine agree with you that black is better, but much more than we expected, like -3. That's quite high. So black mentioned bishop to b4, attack the queen. And the thing is, can the white queen escape? That's a question to you all. Jaden, what do you think?
Maybe to g5.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's the only move if you want to like protect the queen. But then you could play c3, but then that makes your pawns weak. So, but you could take back with the knight.
it would have been take back with the knight.
So after
You mean like this?
knight take. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. Let's talk about this. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then your queen is like still protecting your king.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's talk about c2 later. Let's see where can the queen escape. For example, queen to g5. What can we do next? Can we trap the queen? Can anyone find out a way to trap the queen? This is so fun. Trap a queen at g5.
Is that h6, g5?
H6. And think about it. Queen to h4. If we play g5, we'll lose h6. How can we attack the queen?
Bishop e7, maybe?
Bishop e7, let's try that out. It looks good. The queen is trapped. The queen cannot really move. All the squares are controlled. And the question is, what can we do next? So for example, if white plays something like, I don't know what for example, if white play f4, is there a way we can win material? Question to you all.
Of knight g4.
Yeah, knight g4. This is discover attack. The knight is protected. What about If queen to h3, there is a discovered attack apparently, like knight f2 or knight h3, you can win material. What about queen to h5?
And king h7.
What are you going to do? You want to play g6?
I could play g6 straight away.
And what about f5?
Wait, before king h7, can I just play g6?
Yeah, let's play g6 immediately because the pawn is protected, right? And the queen has to go to h3. And I think we have a bunch of things to do.
And you
Like
also go h5.
you mean h5 right now,
Yeah.
and later you want to trap the queen with knight e3 or knight f2. And you can always have a move to discover attack. Yeah, I think h5 is good. Or I think the knight f2 also works just to win material, win a rook, or win this one. And we can play bishop to f8 to kick the queen. And our king is quite safe. So the conclusion is if the queen moves to g5, it will be heavily attacked. So white has to move c3. And does this solve our problem or solve a question to open the c file? We can just take that. And why take that? Yeah, white can take that with the knight. But are we opening the c file in only like 2 moves? Or only 1 move, bishop to b4, c3, and then we open the c file. And this is what we want to see, right? So you can then move the knight to e6 or queen to e5, keep pinning this knight, and also attacking a2. If queen to b1, you can move bishop to e6, attacking this one. So if you play a3, then you can move the bishop back and the b4. So black can open the queen side as fast as possible. So the bishop b4 is the best way to attack like white instead of pushing the pawn. Pushing the pawn is so slow. So if we can find a quicker way to open the files, go for it. Okay, so let's take a 5-minute break, okay? And let's take a 5-minute break, and then we will come back. Okay, shall we come back? So for the rest of the lesson, so let's learn knight maneuvering. So we have been learning like positional analysis, like how can we open files or how can we attack weakness. And now we come to the topic, how can we improve our piece position, like the knight. So for example, this position, black to move. So I have a question. So if you look at black pieces, which one is the worst in terms of position? Which piece had the worst position? Jaden.
The black knight on c8 probably.
Yeah, the nice.
And both of the rooks and the queen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean the queen, yeah, rook, yeah, they're so terrible. They're all of them terrible. But I think the knight is the worst. And also if you want to improve the A8 rook, we need to like move the knight first, right? So the knight is very bad, like not only like about itself, but it blocks the rest of pieces. So the good thing is, or the first thing is, we started to be aware that the knight is so bad. The next question is, can we find a square that is maybe the best square for the knight? And then think about a plan, how to maneuver the knight to that square.
Knight a7, knight b5, knight c7, knight
Knight d5. Yes. So there is a path, a7, b5, c7, d5. Okay. So yeah, I was also like thinking like the d5 square is best square because it's an outpost. You don't have any like pawns like attacking the square, so it's a very good square for a knight. And we also, I think we also talked about the outpost like this is the best fit like for knight, because knight will not be blocked. For example, if you have a rook at d5, it will be blocked by the d pawn or e pawn. But if you have knight at center, you are still controlling all the 8 squares. So the knight can like jump over the pieces. So knight e7, knight b5, knight c7, and knight d5. Very good. And any other comment, Jaden? Your hand is up.
The d4 pawn is weak. It's a backward pawn, but it's very protected.
Yeah, it's well protected. Yeah, that's true.
Not really a weakness.
No, it's no weakness.
Could be one in the end game though.
So, I mean, if you ask me, I mean, if we look at in another perspective, how can we once we move knight to a7, let's move the pieces first. So for example, knight e7, white could maybe also develop a queen. From white's perspective, I think control these two files are really important because one of them is a semi-open file, another is center file, and you can move the knight to b5, and for example, rook d1, knight c7. So once we have our knight d5, what should we do next? And how can we keep attacking the center? One thing we could try is play c5, the offer exchange with the d4 pawn. And also after the exchange, we can weak the e5 pawn and become weak. So this is my idea how to attack the center. Maybe rook c8 and a c5. Jaden.
We could play. I think rook c8 and c5, but we could also play maybe queen c7 to like help it a little bit more.
Yeah.
c8, and also it attacks e5.
Yeah, I agree. Queen c7 is also a good move to like have another attacker on e5. I agree. Very good input. Okay, let's switch to another position. So we have this one. We have like very active rooks, very active queen, a center queen. Semi-open file, we have this double rook, queen attacking g7. So the question is, or the problem is, our knight has not been involved in our attacking on the king side. And the knight at c3 is not helpful. So can we first think about a square to place our knight, and then come up a plan? How can we gradually maneuver knight to the square? The first question, if you have a perfect square, if you have an ideal square, what would be the square to place the knight? Clara, what do you think? Where would you place the knight? The c3 knight.
Maybe to d1 then f2.
Mm-hmm. Do f2 and any more? Or is f2 the best square you want to place the knight?
I don't know. I don't really know because
Mm-hmm.
no controls a lot of like. There's only like 3 squares it could move to that without being captured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, if we don't have a clear clue, maybe you can think about a piece like knight. So I mean, like knight really like centers, right? If you look at all the center squares, so which square maybe we can move the knight to, and yeah, because if we have a knight at center, that's good.
Probably gonna be e5, but I don't know how to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can come up with a goal and then like set up a plan. Yeah, thank you very much. I agree. E5 is a really good one because a knight at center. Mhm.
We could go like we have to waste a ton of moves, or we could go knight d1, knight f2, knight d3, and knight e5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that looks really good. That looks really good. And this is how we usually like maneuver a knight. So the first thing is we are aware that the knight is not helpful because our main focus is on the king side and is not there yet. The next question is, think about a square to fit the knight. You feel is perfect or the best? I think e5 is a very good one. And the third question is, how can we achieve that? I mean, knight d1, knight f2, knight d3, knight d4. I do agree. It looks like it's a very long path. Like it took us 4 moves. But if you look at black pieces, they're so passive. They cannot do anything. So it's fine that we take like 4 moves to move knight to the center, as long as it's a very good one. So yeah, knight e5 is a very good square. So I noticed that Jade and Blake, you also raise your hand. Do you want to add something, or anyone else want to add something? Jaden, go.
If the bishop, if the bishop is actually right, it's got to never ever attack e5.
Mm. So
And you can only use the rook, and queen to defend it, but they're already overloaded defending h7.
yeah. And also rook and the queen are high value piece. So yeah, that's a very good point. Because black doesn't have a dark square bishop, black doesn't have knight. So if we put the knight at e5, the knight can stay there forever. I can put that in this way because unless black sacrifice piece, for example, trade the rook with our knight. So that's a very good point. If black had a dark square bishop, maybe like spending 4 moves, moving the knight to e5 is not worth it because once we have knight at e5, it will be traded. But black doesn't have a dark square bishop. So knight d1, knight f2, knight d3, knight e5. This looks so good. So let's see how was the white player moving the knight. It actually moved knight to d1. So can anyone think about a path to move knight to e5 later? Knight to d1.
Knight d2, knight c4, knight e5.
Yeah. So white moved the knight to d2 and c4 or f3 and e5. So is this, of course, this is different from what we were thinking about, but which one is better? I don't know. Maybe our one, like this plan, like f2, d3 is better, but what about this plan? Does it give us more flexibility, for example? Jaden, what do you think?
I think it's better because after b1, d2, and c4, c4 is also a good square. Like you can protect a5, b6, and d6.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you could attack those squares. And also, if you go to f3, you can like stable your rook and your queen in place.
Yeah,
Who attacks h4?
yeah, that's true. I think knight d2, once your knight reach d2, it's very flexible. You can move it either to here, or f3, e5. Yeah. And once your knight reach c4, you can probably move to e3 if you want to attack the f5 pawn, for example. So, but we know how we like solve this problem, right? First of all, finding your knight is not like perfect yet. Then think about a square to fit your knight. The third is come up with a plan. But of course, you have to calculate what could be the move, like your opponent would choose. Meanwhile, Jin.
I like knight to b1, knight to d2, and then knight to f3 because it protects the rook and the queen.
Okay, yeah, the knight is protect these two
That's
pieces.
the only reason I like.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I think that's the thing I want to discuss about this position. Let's move on. Let's look at this position. So I think white has a good bishop, even though it's a little bit blocked by this pawn structure, but definitely it's better than the h7 bishop. And there is backward pawn at the semi-open file. Our rook is aiming at that. And the queen is fine. The black queen is also fine. Black has a very good knight at center. And our g3 knight is not as good at d5. And it's not helpful. It attack f5, but we cannot take the pawn. Knight e4 is not a choice. So the question is, what is the best square for the g3 knight? If you have a chance to place the knight to whatever you want, where would you place the knight, Jaden?
Place it on e5.
Oh, yeah, e5 is so good, so good. Any other square apart from e5? Any other square you think is also a good square? What about c5?
That's good.
Yeah, c5 also good because I mean e5 is a center square. I like that. But if we place on the c5, it's also good because the knight and the rook can work together, attacking e6. Okay, we know the goals, we know the destination. The next question, how can we achieve that? where can we or how can we set up a plan to maneuver a knight to either e5 or c5? Jaden, do you want to share? You're muted.
So if you want to go to e5, you need to be your knight on d3 or f3. If
Mhm.
like to be on c5, however, you can get it onto b3, and if you want to get it to b3, you need to go knight to e2, king to b1, knight to c1, and knight to b3, knight to c5. I think
What if
that's
you
the
go
quickest way.
knight f1, knight d2, knight b3, knight to c5?
Wait 1 second. So first of all, I understand what Jaden you're talking about. Do you want to
I'm gonna
move
go
the? Yeah, I really like what you like reasoning. You like have a plan and then think like kind of like in the reversed way. Think about what could be the move. For example, if I want to reach c5, I need to move my knight to b3 first or d3 first. And how can I move the knight to b3? So think like kind of like in the reversed way. That's good. Blake, what did you say? What's your plan?
I think knight f1, knight d2, knight b3, knight c5.
Okay, yeah, this is another path. Okay, cool. So let's see. So in this game, say white play knight to e2. Maybe that's the plan like Jaden is talking about. Like knight to b4, attacking our pawn, and we have to move the king to b1 to protect that, and black take our bishop. We don't have a choice, so because our bishop cannot really move. And we take that with the rook and f4. In this way, like black open this diagonal, rook go back, b4, and knight c1. I think knight is going to d3 or b3. If you are, if you think like trading the knight with bishop is fine, you move knight to d3. But other than that, you can move knight to b3 and knight to c5. So this is quite good path. How about knight to f1? And maybe knight to d2 and knight to b3. Is that does that also works? The thing is, I think there's a difference between knight e2 and knight f1. Does anyone want to share some thought on that? Knight f1, we can move the knight to d2, and maybe knight to b3, or move the queen away and later knight f3. But why did white move the knight to e2 instead? It's more about the moves from black. If you look at the path, knight e2 and knight c1, is there any special with this plan? Jaden.
I'm thinking, and it's like something special because it like helps your king to get safer.
Can you be more specific? How can you make the king safer?
Like you can get the king to b1.
Okay, yeah, king to b1 is safer than being an ac1. Okay.
And also, if you go to f1, d2, b3, you sort of like, I don't know how to say this.
Okay. So let me explain what I was thinking. So if we move the knight to f1, and black still move knight to b4, how do we protect the a2 pawn?
We still go king to b1.
Yeah, king to b1. Then what about um
Oh yeah, queen takes pawn.
what about c5? I'm thinking. Will you take the pawn? If you take the pawn, then what about queen to a6, attacking a2? Maybe you will say, let's play a3. But the problem is, after the exchange, why black could play b4 to open your b file. So the a3 pawn, if we push that, that facilitates pawn break. If you don't take that, black will take a pawn and your king will be exposed. If you take that, the rook to b4 and later rook to ba. I'm a little worried about this b file. And also after f4, I think black can put everything to attack our king. So maybe that's the problem with knight to f1. We move knight to e2 here. Once the queen moved a6, for example, like c5 still, and we can probably move knight to c1. And we don't have to push the a pawn. If we have this pawn structure very flat, like this one, it's not easy for black to create any pawn break. So if you take that, I take with my knight. I can still control e5. And if b4, yeah, there's no like pawn break yet. And maybe you have to further push a pawn. And that give me like at least that can save me like one move. And also, of course, you can take that with the rook. If b4, you can play knight b3 to keep your king side safe. And you have already won the pawn. So I think that's the difference between knight e1, knight f1 and the knight e2, because you can move your knight to c1 in the long route. At the same time, keep your king safe. Okay, so let's look at this one. So let's have another question. So in this game, so white play knight to g5. Does anyone know what is the ultimate goal, or what is the destination that white wants to place the knight? Knight to g5. First of all, the knight at f3 doesn't do anything. You can of course move it to the center, to d4, but even you have a knight here, what can we do next? It's a question. But what about knight g5? What is the plan that white is going to move the knight? Jaden? You're muted?
Well, probably knight h or knight h3 and then knight f4.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could like maybe or you could try, I'm thinking of knight to e4, knight takes, and then bishop takes, and then queen takes. You've sort of, at least you got an open diagonal to attack on.
Yeah,
and then you don't have that bishop.
Yeah, maybe, I see your point. After like trading everything in the center, we can take the g7. Yeah, that's a fair point. But the thing is, maybe black doesn't have to take our knight. But I see your point. To move knight to the center, somewhere in the center, like e4, for example. But let's see. So in this game, like black play knight rook c5, and move knight h3, and later white move knight f4. And the ultimate goal is d5, because this is the center square. White has so many pieces control that. So white can move like the knights connect each other and control the center. So that is a plan, to move knight to g5, h3, and f4. It's better than being placed at f3, which is not really helpful. Why is that? So one more thing, when we move knight to g5, we need to think about h6, knight h3, and g5. And the g5 pawn like forbid us moving knight to f4. But there is a downside for black pushing this kingside pawn. That is, this squares are the king is exposed of these two moves, and white can play f3 and later knight to f2. The knight can still get close to the center. We don't need to worry about the knight being at this rook file. And after knight f2, you can play like something like h4 to attack the king side, because it's exposed with this two pawns. All right, so this is about maneuvering, and we will learn more examples like that in upcoming sessions. Okay, so before we wrap things up, we have a puzzle. I put this at the end. So this is a very interesting one. White to move. What is the best move for white? And really, instead of like show me moves, I really want to explain like why is that the best move in this puzzle? Jada, your hand is up. Do you want to say something?
Maybe you start off with rook to a7 because it's like a fork. And then if rook takes, you can try to play rook to h. Oh, yeah, you're down. Are you down a pawn? Oh, yeah, you are. Oops.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, trading all the rooks, we turn into.
And then you could like maybe trade off another pair. Maybe king takes rook to like try to simplify it. But then it's tough on how to win a pawn back. So
No,
So that
no.
the so the rook on a2 can't move, otherwise it's gonna lose the rook on g2. So if we try to get the rook on rook off the board, we might be able to capture g2 rook.
Okay, that's a strategy to like move this rook away and with this one. Yeah. First of all, trading all the rooks doesn't favor white because black has already like has two pass pawn. We don't even have a pass pawn. Yeah, that's super tricky. And then we're done with the pawn, so that's hard. Blake, do you want to try?
There's rook e7.
Which one? Which rook?
The rook b7.
Rook b7. What do you think the move from black?
So it threatens checkmate. So I think he has to go rook h2, and eventually a king will make it to e1.
Okay, so why do you make the rook to e7? Why don't you move the rook to f7, for example?
If I go to f7, then he can always check me, and it'll be a draw.
Okay, the black rook can keep checking us. Then is there any other? What about I move the rook to c7 and I move the king to c1?
There's king. There's rook c7, but there's king b8 for black.
The king can guard like c8 and also attack our like rook. Okay, it looks like a good plan. But before we move pieces, Jin, do you want to say something about this puzzle? Do you agree move the rook to e7?
Yeah, e7.
Because
if they move, just the same reason.
Yeah, to guard the e2, so that black cannot check us repeatedly. Or can they? Let's try that. Ooh, that's right. Rook h2, and the king to g1. Rook g2, king to f1. Check it again. Then we move the king to e1. So the rook can also guard e2 and also preparing for checkmate. Okay, then we'll win the rook. Very good. Nice. So this is how I would like all of you like solve a puzzle. So not only finding the best move, but thinking about why does the rest of the moves not working? Not so for example, rook c7. Why is this not the best move? Or maybe rook f7. Why is this not the best move? So we need to know why of the wrong ones. So then we can learn. Let's try another one. So since we have 4 minutes, let's try, maybe we can have a new one. I don't know what that is. Let's see. This is a brand new puzzle. Let's try that. What to do? Blake, have you already solved that? Your hand is up. Okay. Okay, let's look at that together. What is the best move for white?
There's rook f8, I think.
Keep going. What's next? Rook f8.
There's rook f8, queen e6. If he goes rook f7, then there's Wait, then there's Queen E8. Anyway, so after Rook F8, Queen E6. If King H, oh, I thought Queen you could play Queen E5. Wait,
Hmm?
it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. Yeah, think about it. Jaden, did you have your hand up? You want to try?
I just figured that out. It did not work.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Jack, and it's up.
I'm not sure, but maybe if you play Queen D7,
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
and
Queen D7.
then there's not a lot of moves that I think black can play. I think the only defense that I can figure out is Queen E7.
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
So maybe after that, it's Queen E7 because if Rook E7, there's Rook F8.
There's the background checkmate. Rook F8. Okay, after trading the queens, Rook F8. Okay, yeah, looks good. Then Queen D7.
Queen D7.
Mm-hmm.
If Rook, then there's basically Black's Rook can't really move, and then you're threatening F7 and G7.
Okay. And also you're attacking the rook.
Yeah.
Okay. That looks cool. So does anyone has any objection? Queen D7, does it work? It looks like Queen G7 is not stoppable. Let's try that, shall we? It looks good to me. Ooh, great. Take the queen.
Yep.
Yes, very good. Cool. So this one has 2,900. It's a very high, high rating puzzle. Very good one. Cool. Then that's it for today. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night. See you next time.
Bye.
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 Bye.